gonna ask you first to show me your homework for wrist motion practice. How did you feel when you had to hold to a longer note in the right hand?
It's kind of leisure feeling in the hand when I play with let going the note.
This looks very good. You will obviously feel much more benefit of this method if you need to play a wider interval, 6 or 7 octave chord. Yeah. Otherwise, you're not making any mistake. Your hand look good. Your rolls, swings are 95% correct. Letting go of the note doesn't feel artificial because you're playing with relaxed hands, so everything looks natural. Yeah, 5 stars. Well done.
Thank you.
Let's move on to a new topic today. Timbre and the polyphonic ear.
Yes, the interesting topic and very deep and very difficult, actually.
Okay, so
difficult to explain.
Well, yes, but it's also very difficult to practice it in a way systematically that it's effective, because you can't just open the score and hear all the notes in your head. So, questions to you. Why do we need develop timbre ear? Name 5 areas in piano playing that is improved with mental practice of sound imagination.
So concrete question, 5 elements. Well, I think first of all, if this is the main reason, I think, in PianoWell system, the inner musical ear is helping to develop this sensation in the tips of your fingers. This sensation like your fingers is like a little hooks that can hang on the keyboard easily.
When your hand is relaxed.
Yes, only in that state.
The cleaning sensation of fingertips you cannot really develop through amount of just practice. Just,
Yes. This is
cool.
a very strange and fragile feeling that you cannot bring about with your willpower. It's just like something.
It's more this subtle energy, this impulse that comes from your mind to the fingertip.
Well, it would be the first one. The second, I think, if you are able to imagine the whole piece, the notes, it's easier to memorize, because when you can sing it, when you know what exactly you're doing on the piano. Also, this concept of inner musical ear, this is a foundation for other more complex skills, like intonation, like other musical means of expression, like dynamic, like...
Yes, to be more exact, it's necessary for us to develop ability to imagine sound in our mind, because we talked about this last lesson. It's about becoming what you're playing. So if you see in the score a color of harmony that you need to express, or the level of the volume of the sound that you need to conceive in your mind, or we will talk about voicing, how to project, what to imagine closer to you, what more far away. It has to have this initial basis of the texture, that clay that you're gonna work with. You can't just tell yourself, imagine this note's loud. it's very abstract. Like, what exactly do you mean? How loud, you know? So yeah, that's very important. And also, but also it's very beneficial because also you will develop a very subtle sensation of different nuances of tone on the tip of your finger. So I get many, you know, and you did as well, that I have so many nuances of tone when I play. And it's because I know exactly that I'm playing, I'm feeling this diminished chord and this exact dynamics of pianissimo, for example, and developing all these gradations of colors. So that's very important. So it also will improve your tone, the quality of your tone, the musicality. Okay, what else? What about sight reading?
This is a very obvious benefit, because it's like you see the notes and you right away understand what do you want to play.
Mm-hmm. Because the problem usually with sight reading is that we're trying to play something that we have not imagined yet. We're trying to say something.
Sometimes we associate the notes on the music sheet not with the sound. This is a huge problem, but with the keys.
And location.
Mm-hmm. Yes, with the location. So we substitute the one landmark by another. So we orient it not on the sound but on the location, where the key. It's very subjective. You know, this is very subjective feeling of this sound imagination. I think every person is this sensation in everyone. It is different. Of course, we have some common. So these abstract rules that you provide is very abstract, and this is very beneficial to learn. So, but when you want to develop this like it is your second nature, so you need to listen to your own. So you need to trust yourself, trust your own feelings. Maybe. Yeah.
Yes, because it's also very good that you mentioned. I have these questions in the past from students like, do I imagine this correctly? And I was like, well, we have not created X-ray for brain yet. So yeah, the only thing I can advise is just follow these steps, and you will develop at your best. So yes.
But you should do this. You should believe in yourself. It's a matter of faith. A little bit, a matter of faith in yourself. It's just like a magic. You just need to believe and trust that you can do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in more general approach to this problem, I think the sound imagination is just it is the basis of expressing yourself, because the music is a language, as well as we speak in English, we produce sounds, and we don't play the silly game to press the sound to the right timing. We expressing some thoughts, and if you have these thoughts, if you know what to say, so for example, the sound that we imagine, if we can express it, so then we know what to do, and our muscles are getting ready to say.
Yes.
And
psychologically it really helped me, and I include that story into my musicals journey, that when I realized that I can actually play just to express my own imagination, my own creativity, and that means there is no right and there is no wrong.
Yeah,
you know,
it's very
that means there is no
liberating.
second guessing. Have I pleased someone else enough to get this reward? When you just use it as your own expression, that helps, that releases this blockage in your mind of fear, you know, that you're just doing something for other people. And it fills you with so much confidence that yes, this is it, I am here, and this is what I do because I am, you know.
Yes, you feel, because you feel responsible for every word you say.
And you know that it's right, and you know that it's right because it comes from the right place. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a very powerful thing. But it's also very you need to train your mind.
Difficult to train, yes.
Yes, oh my god. Usually when students start, they have to make breaks after 5 minutes. Because
this is the case where you need to do this pillow technique.
Okay, well, no, maybe. Yeah, it can get sometimes very frustrating. Well, again, that's why I created this simple exercises that we're gonna talk about today. All right. Next question. I think we covered it perfectly. Next question. How to choose sound movement of a note in the score or an interval? Also interesting question.
We discussed a little bit of this last week. So the sound movement is represented with those wrist movements, and the rule of determination of those wrist movements is similar to determine the sound movement. So we just look to the previous note, and if it's lower, then the current note is going to be to the right. So if the previous note is higher, then it's going to be to the left.
Well done, well done.
And if this is one note and it keeps going on this one note, we just keep the same direction. If this is the first note in the score, we can choose anything we want, left or right.
What about the interval? Yeah.
Interval, we just think only about the melody line, so voicing.
And choosing
in polyphonic texture example, we have two notes, C and G, and the bottom note is to the left, and the upper note is to the left. Is also to the left. Then we starting to imagine the upper note and then the bottom note. So we go from right to the left. So our direction we и потом and then that's just my Russian brains. And then we just have this chord at once. The next instance example, if we have those directions, for example, to the right, so we just go from the left note and to the right. So the C is to the right, G is to the right, and the both note is going to be to the right. And we imagine first note C and then G, C, G, C, G, C, G,
so
C, G.
So if both notes have movement to the left, we start imagining up, down, from the upper note down. If to the right, then from the lower up. From the lower note up.
Yes, so if to the right, from to the lower, yes, from lower to the
What happens
and
if they're in country motion?
Yes, if in country motion, we start from note that goes to the left.
Correct, and that could be either higher note or lower note.
Yes.
What matters is that it has movement to the left.
It's a mystery effect why we should start with note from to the left, but I think it's really more natural to start. Maybe
that's how I came to that. I mean, through years I just came. That's the most natural. Well, at least for those of us who are reading from left to right. So I think that explains why we feel more natural and comfortable imagining it in those orders that you just mentioned. Somehow it just feels, it's more fluid, it's connecting better. Since we're talking about imagining 2 or 3 notes together at the same time, why do we need to imagine them this way? Why we can just look at the score and there's C and G at the same time, C in the left hand, G in the right hand. Let's imagine them
And
here.
just press the keys and be happy with it.
No. Okay, yeah. But yeah, just like, remind yourself the pitch and just like, okay, yeah, I got it in my mind. Yeah, I think I can hear both notes. Why we cannot do that right away? Well, we can eventually when we develop this ability, but what's the trouble?
Well, I think it's just in Russia we know this word "haltura." So if you
I don't even know what would be equivalent in English, right? Haltura. Cheating? I don't know. It's something like that.
maybe yes, cheating.
Kind of don't know, but also in a very bad quality cheating.
Yes, it's haltura is when you do something with not much an effort and just the cheap result. You're getting the cheap result, not an expensive, not rich and
so there is no
powerful
quality.
result.
In other words, if you have a chord and there are 3 notes in the chord, and you might just end up hearing more clear just one voice and other voices more like part of the harmony, a little bit blurry, very vague, abstract, not really clear. So with this way of imagining the notes, when we imagine them sequentially and then we're reducing time in our imagination, imagine faster, 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 and ultimately the fastest tempo will bring them together, this way we can be sure that it's guaranteed that we imagine both of those notes or 3 of those notes or 4 at the same level of quality. What does it give to us? It provides us the better control over
Each
the notes
finger,
that we play in the chord. So when you play the chord, the muscles are prepared and you can express yourself much more confident and feel more stable. That's why we need that. Yeah, well done. And of course, that would be essential for playing fugues, right? Well-tempered clavier by Bach. Because that's the whole point actually, right? You're playing 3 voices, fugue of 4, you need to hear all 4 voices. Most of the time we just hear the theme and then just like kind of very abstract, vague shades of other voices.
The thing is just have come to my mind is when we play our piano is just blank timbre. So when we play, we don't play piano. We just imagine some timbres. We may play with strings, with brass, with everything we want. So we have the chord, and we have we have those musicians. Like it's 4 seats, 1 musician for E, this another musician for this, just the whole orchestra. So we have the chord and 3 person who play C, E, and G.
Exactly. Yes, and they should be present. Otherwise, haltura.
Yes. Yes.
No one is gonna pay them. Do you remember why would I start developing this ability to imagine sounds in our mind with using sounds of instruments like violins and cellos? Why we're not going to sound texture, for example, right away?
We are not able to imagine if we are if we don't have this in our experience. What is imagination? Basically, this is an activization of our memory. So this is our thought process, our memories, we organize them. And if we don't have this information, we cannot imagine anything. So we just simply don't know how it should be. And to imagine sound, if we didn't do this before, we just need some reference. And violins and cellos is good reference. Why it is good? Because I think it's developing this initial good sensation of rich sound that is good for your body to be able just relax and feel this through the whole your muscles. And this is just a good taste. You provide this beautiful piece, third part of Fifth Symphony of Mahler, and
actually,
this is good.
Yeah. Can I just squeeze here the question, why that piece?
Because this is the right example of this sound that
the quality of that.
The quality,
sound,
yes, that we need to upload, somehow upload to our brain. And also this is developing this taste of performance, taste of artistic taste. We should listen to good music, not the bad one, to develop the taste.
Mm-hmm. So can we just expand a little bit, what do you mean by taste? So I think that, well, not I think actually, I feel that when I imagine the sound of, let's say, one violin in my mind, let's say there's a beautiful melody. Okay, I'm just gonna go with the sound of one violin. So we can all recall the sound of one violin, even if it's played with a very good by masters and has a very good sound and tone. It's still one violin. So as we mentioned, I don't know if we did, but yeah. So the sound imagination also, the quality of sound imagination affects our muscles. So sound imagination itself will be reflected and connected to fingertips, but the quality of the sound will be integrated in our muscles. So if we imagine this one violin, the muscle will start contract because there's not much volume in that sound. That's why I always say, imagine ocean of violins, ocean of cellos, because that brings this warmth and softness to that quality of the sound, which is a perfect reference, good word, for our muscles. So if our muscles are going to be filled with that energy, it will help them to feel relaxed and warm and soft. Again, by default, obviously, the touch and the muscle tonus will all be changed according to phrasing and energy and dynamics. But by default, that's the sensation I want to have.
By default, yes. Initial state.
Mm-hmm. And so that particular recording is introduces the most soft and beautiful sound of this ocean of violins. Mahler was very good at those. It has depth, it has volume. So this is very important to mention. What kind of violin I imagine? Because again, even if we restrict, sound imagination, what is it? Okay, let's say it's violins. Again, to be more exact again there, what kind of violins? So that's a good answer to that.
And the question was about why we should do this from the start and not right away the sound text.
Oh yeah, I think you answered that right in the beginning. Yeah. It's because you need a very clear reference to what is it I'm imagining. And because most of us advanced pianists have been listening hours, millions of hours of symphonies and operas, we're so familiar with those sounds. So that's why both of us, me and my student, can agree that this is the sound of violin, and this is what I mean, my student, when I ask you to imagine something. Because, like you said, otherwise it's too abstract. Imagine the sound. So, and it's also easy to recall. That's another reason. It's also easy to imagine because it's quite clear.
And more of this is the concept of sound movement. It's easier to imagine it with bows when we do this.
Well done. Very good answer. So another quality of sound imagination is not just the texture of the sound itself, but also be able to feel the movement of the sound, right or left. And like you said, So the movement is when we sing the same pitch, but we imagine the sound going to the right, or to the left, and so again with violins it's so easy to imagine how you move your bow to the right or to the left. Correct, yes.
I was thinking about this sound movement and why it is important, because when we play, for example, on the violin, there's no way to play a sound without this movement. So this movement is mean that the sound is going to leave, and when this movement is stopped, the sound dies.
Mm-hmm.
But on the piano, we just can press the key, and the sound will be without this movement. But we still do have to learn from violinists to make this, and especially and also in our vocal cords. So our vocal cords constantly do this movement. They vibrate, and when they stop vibrating, this sound stops.
Mm-hmm.
But on piano, when we press the key, we just the sound this problem.
I would also add here that we should never play straight. Even if it looks like that the pianist plays straight, it's such an unnatural movement. Every movement in nature is like that. It has the movement, yeah? So you will never see a straight, perfectly straight something. So imagining sound movement will echo in the wrist movement that we were making in two-dimensional, or later with some texture, it will go with the three-dimensional movement. That's one thing. And second thing, what you also mentioned is about singing. And this is very true, because also to create music between the notes, we need to first imagine that music between the notes. And if you're just imagining one note, or even how do you feel there is nothing, there's void. But when you hear that sound movement, and then also we're adding the sound, so a sound movement actually helps us to give initial direction towards the next note that we're going to imagine, and as well as sing internally later on. Okay.
There is a little confusion for me when I practiced. And the source of this confusion is just like in this in this similarity between the sound movement on the note, and when we do the glissando, we still do this movement. And when for example, I do contrary motion, so sound movement to the left, and then I should go glissando to the right. And now I feel just...
This is especially very important. It's such a good thing what you touched on, because when we're making swings, so we're making one to the left, another one to the right, and you're supposed to connect to the right with glissando, right? Because we're going higher. So what happens sometimes is that the wrist loses this little movement to the left on that note, and it just doesn't feel that note, and it just moves to the right. But this initial movement of a little bit to the left is important to release any tension, to also let wrist to follow the sound. So this awareness that yes, every note has the sound movement. Also, for example, very important, just came to my mind, if you play a chord, just one chord, but if you not imagine, especially if you imagine something very loud, and if you forget about sound movement and you just press the chord in sound, texture, harmony, dynamics, fortissima, boom, you get that vertical thing. And if you lose that sound movement to the right, you're not releasing, and you don't let the chord sing in a way. So this awareness that yes, sound movement should be always present is very important for technique,
this
for feeling comfortable.
point when we just start make glissando, sound movement and glissando, this point, just when we stop doing one thing and start doing other thing, this glissando, this was very, very confusing for me.
I think initially you do imagine the notes, like you understand that you imagine the notes with sound movement, but you're right, when we start imagining notes sequentially, it all started just blending in. There is no certain point that, okay, I'm making 30% of sound movement and then I start going to glissando. Yeah, it's like you cannot calculate it, it's more like natural.
That was mean when I said that it's not so good when you try too hard. So
So sound movement in this case, I think it's more like helping to show you the initial direction to glissando. Yes.
Question is, when I do sound movement to the left and then I should do glissando to the right, sometimes and especially when I look at the score and I see that notes are higher, I feel that this is not a horizontal, it's like just I want to do like,
diagonal up?
Yeah. I feel just it's and I force myself to do this.
You do. You need to force.
Yes.
And that's
so
why.
To force.
And that's why you were talking about also wrist motion. That is also a horizontal line, because sometimes wrists want to go this way, which is fine in the future, but not now.
Right.
You have to make sure it's horizontal. This under. And also the way you sing, because you will sing here, and so if you sing and you make sure that you sing but not that will help you imagine as well.
This was a very unusual sensation of horizontal singing, but then I realized why we do this, because our keyboard is horizontal.
Exactly. It is absolutely
because of design
true.
of our piano.
Yes, it's our.
This is the art of piano technique, not the singing technique.
Yeah.
So we learning how to play piano, so we use this approach of horizontal singing. So maybe if I just will think about the piano when I sing, that this.
You're moving across the keyboard, yes.
Across the keyboard to the right,
Yeah.
yes.
This is very important, because if you start imagining like this, your wrist will go like that. And you will lose something important. And the next note, where you're gonna move your wrist, the sound movement on the next note, you see? But when you go like this, then you can move. But if you go like that, you cannot move. Yeah. Okay. What else do we have here? We have here actually a homework for you. So we're going to jump into the homework, and it's going to be basically it's about 4 steps that you need to make when you approach a new simple piece, like it's going to be Schaefer, I think, and what exactly you need to do. And as you notice, in this exercise there is no playing involved. It's all in your mind. So in fact, you can do it even when you don't have piano. And the more you do, the more fluent you are in music language, in timbre and polyphonic ear language, yeah? All right, so 4 steps here. Just to remind you, the first one, we're imagining one note at a time. Second, we're imagining notes sequentially. Third, we imagine one vertical line at a time. I think in this exercise this is going to be just this block interval that you're going to receive when you have 2 notes together between 2 hands. So you work with one line only when the hands match, when you have a vertical interval. And first step, you're finally ready to imagine both hands together. So each step will include always 2 elements. One is singing, and second one is imagining. So the question is, why would we sing?
The short answer would be that it is a foundation for future practice with intonation.
Okay, more concrete question. Why singing would help us here to imagine the sound?
Because our voice is the closest theme, the closest sounding thing to us, and easy to control it.
Good. But there are two very simple answers. First, when we sing the note, it helps us to recall the pitch. Because sometimes, we can press the key and we can remind yourself, but it goes like you said, because it's so natural for us. When we sing something, it goes much deeper, sensation goes much deeper. So when you sing that G, it really, you can imagine it much clearer, that pitch. And second reason, we sing with sound movement, because especially in the beginning, to conceive this whole idea of what is sound movement, how can I imagine that G in violins with movement to the right? Okay, I can imagine the bow moving to the right, but does it really help? So when you actually sing, and you have intention to feel how the vibration, the sound, the moving along, then after that you find it, it's much easier to imagine. So singing with sound movement helps you to imagine sound movement more easily and more clear. All through
Singing
the voice.
with sound movement. Singing.
Yes, because here, you see, sing a note with sound movement. Right? And
I remember that at first this movement, my vocal cords, they always stay in one place, but when I so I believe it doesn't mean that the source of the sound is going. Sound doesn't go anywhere, it stays, but this movement, it is possible to imagine it in kind of a fold of time and space. So this is like a dot, and this movement inside this dot, not in the space, but this just we stay in place.
It's like you're stretching something. I understand what you're trying to explain. It's not the movement that is moving and then it's not here anymore. It's more like the movement is here and stretching. And that's why I have this good analogy as a comet, a shooting star. So you have the star always, but then the tail goes. So it's continuous. Yes.
So we not stretch, we just stay, and something is going inside.
Yeah.
It's going after it.
And that's another reason why it's so good to sing, because when you sing, you keep singing. So it's good to feel.
So Emma, is it possible to imagine sound movement without moving actually? So I just can see it and feel this movement inside. So we just do this hand movements.
It's an exercise.
It's help. It's just for help.
All of these exercises, of course, I never approach the piece as it's written here. It's all just a very simple, clear exercises to not get overwhelmed when you try to start imagining the sounds, one step at a time. And singing helps a lot. And singing, moving your hand, imagining the bow, moving as well, whatever. Sometimes students move their eyes, sometimes students move their head. I'm not doing like this when I'm imagining. I just look at the score and I hear the movement.
Once again, it's just an initial approach to this. It's just you train yourself with this exercise.
For training purpose, yes.
Yes, but in a real battle, you just do.
In a real battle, I look at the score, no matter how many voices they are. I look at the score and I imagine both hands together with correct movement, with glissando. And then I come to the piano and then I play slowly with correct movements. And that would be, a day of my practice. That would take me maybe half an hour. Done, That's what we want to achieve eventually. All right, so with this exercise, just follow the one that is in the video. And I've written here, mirror my hand movement, because sometimes students ask from the video, are you moving this? Are you moving to the right or to the left? So in this case, if I move like this, I'm moving to the left.
To the left.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we're gonna wrap it up for today.
And how will you test me with my homework? If my homework is about sound imagination, so how you would scan my brain and know that I imagine it?
I will ask you questions. If you had any questions, if you doubt yourself, if you were not sure if you're making it correctly, if you had problems, if you felt stuck, and this is what we usually talk about.